Good evening, Who Dat Nation, and a happy Wednesday to our Bayou Blitz family. I hope everybody is doing well out there. I hope you're getting your Christmas shopping out of the way, preparing for Santa in all the good ways. And on that note, I am Bob Rose. I am one of your co-hosts to your Bayou Blitz podcast this evening. Joining me is my partner on the road yet again, and lucky enough to be in a very warm climate this evening, Brendan Boylan. Happy Wednesday to you, Brendan.
Wednesday on a Wednesday. Who would have thunk it? How about that? Yeah. It's been in the 70s since I've been here in the Orlando area. Still in a hoodie, as you guys know, you loyal watchers. I'm always cold, so what does it matter? But no, it's been good. We get to talk about not good football today. You're welcome for not having a post game on Sunday. Yes. Because there wasn't much to talk about outside of the few scores there in the fourth quarter, but we'll get into that. Bob, I hope your Christmas shopping's done. You're the one with kids. No, that's a negative. It's a negative sign from Bob. I'm almost done. I got one more to get. So hopefully the Amazonian gods. I don't know. Hopefully Amazon gets it to me on time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm waiting for a couple myself, and just due to the way my pays fell this year, wasn't able to get the bulk of mine started until late. Lauren and I are taking Will to see Santa Claus on Saturday morning.
Awesome.
But he's already made out his Christmas list, so that's sent and gone. So hopefully Santa will take care of his end of the bargain, and I just got I just got that little sliver to take care of on my end.
That's right. And talking about the mail, Eric, I haven't seen you pop in here yet. Your football got that I was sending out to Bob. I either wrote Bob's address wrong or they punched it in wrong because it came back undeliverable. So I'm going to resend it. And Bob will get it and we'll get it out to you before the holidays. I'm going to express that thing to Bob. Bob, I'm going to put the shipping label to Eric in there. So all you got to do is retape it. It's going to express to you and express to him. So you should have it by the end of next week before all the holiday stuff. So early Christmas gift for you, Eric. And if you're not in here yet, I'll say it when I do see it in here again.
Yeah, so barring a blizzard that prevents me from driving 1.5 miles to my post office, Eric, I think you should be good.
Should be okay. You should be okay. Hey, listen. If I've learned anything over the last 3 years with mail at all, things like that happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All the time. And Bob, you and I have like the shared mailbox thing in terms of like our neighborhoods. I'm sure it's happened to you. Very important things have ended up in the wrong person's mailbox.
Yep.
And that's annoying because the post office was like, no, we delivered it. And you're like, no, you delivered it to the wrong person.
What state does Eric live in? Because I could use a road trip if things go awry.
Let me pull it up once again. As Gmail loads in the background, let's go ahead and talk about Saints football. Not pretty against the Panthers at all. I don't know how we want to start this because I think a lot of people, at least in the New Orleans media, there's been just as it has been for the last few weeks, it's been a lot of Derek Carr. It's been a lot of Dennis Allen. No in between. It's really easy to go to those. And we will talk about those. We'll talk about some of the wonderful chants and the wonderful boos that came out of the Superdome as well. But, Bob, this was a game where you and I came in and said the last thing the Saints could do was get behind early. They did a decent job of not doing that. And what was it? The Kamara touchdown, that drive, the Saints looked competent. I think that's a good word. Offensively competent. After the Alvin Kamara drive,
the offense went home. The offense became offensive.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I don't know what the uncompetent, like I don't want to be so unoriginal with my vocabulary tonight, but the offense just disappeared.
Yeah.
The defense did a good enough job on Bryce, given it was one of the worst offenses in football. So you're patting yourself on the back for what? I don't know. So let's start with the offense. What were some of the positives from that one drive? That one drive that in the Alvin Kamara touchdown were you sitting there when you were charting plays and taking notes? Did anything jump off the page at you and go, you know what? Maybe they got somewhere to go.
Well, and it wasn't just that touchdown drive; it was their first drive of the game. That ended in the Blake Groupie horrific shank of a field goal. On both that drive and the Kamara touchdown drive, the Saints controlled the line of scrimmage. They got a lot of their yardage, on running plays with Jamal Williams and Alvin Kamara. When Carr did throw, they were quick throws. He got it out of his hand quick. Shorter throws, but again, they managed to control the ball that way, control possession that way, stay ahead of the sticks. And this is going to be mixing a positive with a negative. The defense certainly helped them out. From a field position aspect, 18 of the first 19 plays that the Saints ran offensively were on the Carolina side of the 50. It was unfortunate that they only came away with one touchdown and that missed field goal out of those 3 drives, though. You have to do, as we've said about the Saints all season, you have to do a better job of converting. But again, New Orleans had control of the line of scrimmage and controlled the football as good as they had against any opponent all year long for at least a couple of those drives. So that's a positive to take away from it. And again, through the first quarter and that first play of the second, which was Kamara's touchdown run, Alvin and Jamal Williams combined for 72 rushing yards on 11 carries. That's pretty damn good. Now again, to sprinkle in the negative, they inexplicably got away from that. After that touchdown. For the rest of the game, Kamara and Williams combined for only 12 rushes and an even worse 27 yards. So what happened to that control of the line of scrimmage? I don't know. When rewatching the film, it was pretty clear that Derek Carr in that passing game wasn't right. Carolina figured that out and just stacked the tackle box, and New Orleans was unable to beat it. But at least, even then, throughout the remainder of the game, the Saints' offensive line provided Carr decent pass protection. The receivers just couldn't get any separation, and Carr couldn't find them when they did. But if you're looking for a positive, the Saints being able to run the ball very effectively through the first quarter, is something to hang your hat on, and hopefully it's something that they can expand on in the games going forward.
I think additionally, to have the type of first quarter they did on the ground, and I mentioned Jamal Williams in our pregame as a guy that I really wanted to highlight through that game, to do that without Taysom Hill, to kind of set the energy early, powerful runs off tackle, whatever, without arguably I don't even think it's an argument, your second best weapon in terms of running the football, I think speaks volumes. And the Saints needed to rely on that because of Derek Carr being really banged up. And I want to get into that. Derek said it was probably the worst pain he's played through in his NFL career. Reports came out of the broken ribs, the bruised cartilage, the AC joint sprain. But Derek also said he felt like he gave the team a pretty good chance to win games.
Okay.
Yes, I chuckled at that too, Bob. Let's call a spade a spade. Jerry, you guys get my days mixed up every week. Jerry, we're trying to be good today, all right? It's Wednesday on a Wednesday. We're trying to be good. Thankfully, I actually have a little bit of a space to do it from the road this go-around. But I digress. Going to Derek Carr and some of those comments, I mean, like I said, let's call a spade a spade. The guy had 34 yards in the air up until like the 11 or 12-minute mark of the fourth quarter. Hits A.T. Perry. One of I don't know. I don't want to say the Bob Rose stamp of approval because A.T. Perry is just one of Bob's guys. Like we all have those guys. So Bob, we got to think of something creative for your guys and my guys. But he hits A.T. Perry, puts it in a good spot where Perry can extend and semi dive and make the catch. And that was really the only big play from Derek Carr in the game. Carr gets booed. I don't know if as much or as heavily as the week prior. But we also heard chants of "We want Jameis" from the crowd. Points throughout the afternoon. This even sounds stupid to ask? Was it smart for Derek to play?
Yeah, in a word, no. No, I don't believe that it was. And his comments after the game about how much pain that he tolerated to even get out onto the field. I don't think even the harshest Derek Carr critics should be in any position to doubt his physical toughness. I think he's proven that. But again, you and I have said it several times this season. You kept Jameis Winston around. You redid his contract. In theory, because we thought that the Saints, wanted an experienced backup quarterback who knew your offensive system in case something happened to your starter. Well, something has happened to your starter. He isn't even close to 100% physically. Plus he's dealing with a couple of concussions now in less than a month. We've seen how that affects players, mentally and just their ability to process the game, especially at the quarterback position. So why didn't you play Jameis Winston? I don't understand it. You, Pete Carmichael, and your coaches, you obviously set up the game plan to be run heavy, short passes, not putting your quarterback at risk, extremely conservative offensively. All right, I understand that. But again, you have a guy sitting on the bench that we know turns the ball over, but we also know can put up some explosive numbers, and has run your team before, has engineered your team to victories plenty of times before. So I'm not behind the scenes. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know how close to 100% Derek Carr truly it was. But if you're judging from his comments, that alone was enough to tell me that maybe you should have let the guy rest for a week, and played Jameis Winston against a 1-11 team that on paper you should have handled almost regardless who was at your quarterback. And you can't tell me that Jameis Winston couldn't have run that same kind of basic, vanilla, conservative game plan that you had Derek Carr run. And if it's Jameis Winston that throws those two deep passes to A.T. Perry, where it was off the mark and A.T. had to make a really nice diving catch, and earlier to Chris Olave, where when the ball first left Derek's hands and I saw how open Chris was, I started to stand up and put my arms up like this is a touchdown. Instead, it was an underthrown ball that the Panthers defensive back broke up. If Jameis Winston is throwing that football, and I know I'm not saying Jameis Winston is a better quarterback than Derek Carr or vice versa for that matter. I am saying that a healthy Jameis Winston throws those two balls and they are touchdown passes. That's the way I see it.
Or severely overthrown.
Yeah, possibly.
Just to throw that out there too. No, I have to say what you said earlier about Derek's 100% true. You cannot question the guy's toughness. And I know some people were comparing, well, Drew played with 11 broken ribs. And I was like, well, so what? I mean, that is a testament to the greatness of Drew Brees as well. To crack ribs, finish the half, throw a touchdown with 11 broken ribs. guys like that don't come along often. And even for Derek, for some of that information to come out, I don't want to say after the fact, but later in the week, is a testament to him, wanting to be out there for the team.
Sure.
And yeah, the numbers weren't there. And I was harsh on Derek, still harsh on Derek, and how disappointing this season has been. Not just for the amount of money he signed for, but because he was supposed to be the guy that you don't want to call him the savior of the offense, but take you back to the promised land offensively. I will say this, though. The play calling, like Bob said, vanilla, didn't give him a whole lot of opportunities. But the opportunities he was given, he missed. To Olave and A.T. Perry nearly missed. And we're having a completely different conversation about this game potentially. Because, Bob, it was a game. And yes, you look at the final score and you say, no, it wasn't. But for the and you even the just the very standard NFL like tweets and posts on Facebook and whatever say, like Saints blow out Panthers or Saints, handle Panthers easily. And it's like, well, if you really watch that game, that was not the case at all because the Saints offense was terrible. Outside of the one Alvin Kamara drive and the missed field goal drive.
And as a result, not to interrupt, I apologize for the interruption. As a result, the awful run defense by the Saints allowed Carolina, I'm not going to say to get back into the game, but to stay in the game and to keep it within striking distance until late into the fourth quarter.
And Miles Sanders, who we kind of harped on being a guy who has had a really bad year, had maybe the best game of his year. Against New Orleans in terms of consistency, maybe not the numbers, maybe not getting in the end zone, but consistency and touching the ball and making an impact that way. And if it wasn't for, Bob, I have to get this guy's name out because he scored and he's a South Carolina boy that went to a North Carolina small D1 school. DeMarco Jackson, first NFL touchdown, a guy that you were really high on in the draft process. A guy, like I said, Burns High School or Burns or Broome. That's important to know. So the few people in South Carolina here, like Brendan, you got to know the difference. But I believe it was Burns, but went to Burns in South Carolina. Goes to App State. Great to see that guy make an impact, especially after the injury last year that kept him out all year. So congrats on your first NFL touchdown. But if it wasn't for that play, that was by two linebackers that we both had high hopes for in training camp. Again, we're talking about a completely different ball game. And if it wasn't for the defense making some plays, appreciate the Saints defense because that got me into my fantasy football playoff because I was a winning in. And I picked up their defense because I thought, it's Carolina. Like, it's a really bad offense, guys. Got to help me out. We're talking, like I said, if some of those things don't happen, we're talking about a different ball game. And you may say, well, Brendan, if certain things don't happen in every game, you're talking about a different ball game. Of course. But particularly in this one, what's our favorite saying this year, Bob? On paper, the Saints should have had this game in control from the jump. And they allowed Carolina to stay in it because of a putrid offensive showing, some of which is on the play calling. It was very basic. Some of it on Derek Carr, some of it on the offensive line. I mean, you can go down the list. But the run defense, and I like Chuba Hubbard a lot.
Yeah.
But it was Miles Sanders, when I watched the film, that kind of got that offense going. It was a Miles Sanders touch here that was like 7 yards. A Miles Sanders touch here that was 6 yards. It wasn't the big breakthrough, but it was like, okay, Miles Sanders hasn't ran the ball well all year with a bad offensive line. And all of a sudden, this is your guy that is, it's like I said, it's not the haymaker, but it's that jab that catches you and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And another jab that catches you and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And that's what kept Carolina in the football game.
Yep.
Concerning. And before we talk about the defense more in detail there, because it's been a concern for a couple years now, honestly, and it was quick. Like the Saints, one of the best run defenses in the NFL. It was like 40-something straight games without a 100-yard rusher. And then the Titanic hit the iceberg, and that shit went down real quick. Something happened. I'm not sure what it was. But offensively for the Saints, yes, you're down some receivers, Shaheed and Thomas. Yes, you're down Taysom Hill in that game, a really big offensive weapon. But you're starting to see not just the leaks, but those leaks are becoming larger and larger problems.
I think it's safe to say that the dam has broke. Forget leaks.
Yeah, the dam is broke. That's a good way of saying it. Things that we thought, okay, well, they could patch that up. They could patch that up. All of a sudden, there is no patch job that could save the problems. And some of that, too, and I don't want to read too much into this, but in my opinion, the fact that Dennis Allen continued to deflect it in postgame tells me a lot of what I need to know. Yes, there are things on the field that are past repair in terms of just problems. Now, we're so late in the season, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, it does because the Saints, for however way and reason, are still a potential playoff team. But what I mean by that is you're so late in the season, there is no sitting there and going, okay, let's chalk it back up and start from square one. You're too deep in the season to do that, to start trying to make drastic changes to your offensive philosophy and game plans. Your problems are your problems, and you just got to deal with them. And you got to do the best you can to shade those away from defenses really taking advantage of it.
Yeah, you minimize your weaknesses as best you can at this stage.
Exactly. But
Coach Bob speak, I guess.
Coach Bob speak. Man, we could make a lot of good hats and T-shirts with things we say on the show. Coach Bob speak. On paper would be another good one. Maybe we'll get some ideas here for 2024. But the breakdowns in communication, the clear frustration amongst players, and the sense of lost locker rooms or lack of leadership and accountability, that dam burst weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like every time, some of you guys will know exactly what I'm talking about here. You guys have been driving down the interstate, or you guys pull into a parking lot. Someone's got like a cracked windshield or a huge dent in the side of their car, right? And they get the Band-Aid, like they very literal, like figurative Band-Aid, and they just go, fixed. So what I feel like Dennis Allen tries to do anytime like anybody in the media tries to talk about these problems, it's like, well, let's just slap a Band-Aid on it. And you're like, that's not going to hold the floodgates. And for me, seeing Eric McCoy react the way he did, because Eric is a very calm, cool, collected individual, that shocked me to see that kind of barking. And I know they said they're going to handle it in-house and they're making a bigger deal of it than what it is. I can tell you as someone, and I know every time I say this, one of you in the chat is shocked, but from the years that I played center, your relationship with your quarterback, even in the difficult times, needs to be stronger than the quarterback's relationship with virtually anybody.
Mm-hmm. And
you can disagree. You don't have to like the guy. I mean, frankly, you got to get comfortable with him because his hands are kind of in places where you got to be comfortable with each other.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you should 9 times out of 10 have each other's back or have enough respect for each other where if there was an issue in pass protection or there was an issue in something, that you get to the sideline, you sit down, you discuss it like grown men. But this is not the first time we've seen, and I'm not just throwing Derek Carr under the bus, this is not the first time we've seen Saints players this year barking at each other on the field opposed to on the sideline. Bob, how do you read that?
if this were an isolated incident between Derek Carr and Eric McCoy, I would chalk it up as simply this: intensity of the moment, two competitors wanting to win, and a little bit of frustration boiling over. If you've played sports at any reasonably competitive level, you have seen it happen, if not happen to you yourself. I've had it happen to me loads of times, or seen it happen, with teams I've been involved in, both as a coach and a player. And that's football, that's track, that's volleyball. You guys have met. We've had him on the show a couple of times. My former doubles partner, when we played indoor ball together. Pro-am indoor ball. There was 3 separate occasions where he and I had to be separated by teammates, and we went on to become best friends. So, things happen. I get that. But this is the issue that I have. This isn't an isolated incident with Derek Carr, and this isn't an isolated incident with the New Orleans Saints this year. It's also very telling, as you pointed out, that a mild-mannered guy like Eric McCoy absolutely went off the way he did. Now we don't know exactly what Derek said, at least not that I'm aware of. To set McCoy off. What's that?
Wait for NFL films.
Yeah, and I can't wait. I would love to. I would love to hear a mic'd up episode of that. But I mean, it was very clear. It happened on a play where Derek was absolutely leveled on inside pressure from a defense, which has been a major issue all year long, for this offensive line and for this team. Now on the play, Cesar Ruiz, shocking, was a human turnstile. What you don't, Ruiz swung and missed on that play. So the execution part is on him. But what you don't know is whether this was something that Derek Carr should have identified and changed the protection call, or whether this was something that Eric McCoy should have identified and either changed the protection call or slid over to help Ruiz on his inside shoulder. So we don't know the schematics of that either. But it's not only very telling to me that McCoy went off on Carr, the way he did and in the manner that happened, but for, I was just about to say for weeks, but frankly, for most of the season, when Derek Carr has been flattened, either on a sack or on a quarterback hit when he's gotten rid of the football, how often have the offensive line, any of the offensive linemen, gone over to help him up, to see if he was all right, anything like that? I've watched a lot. I've had to rewatch a lot of these Saints games, so I won't tell you the exact number, but I'll tell you, you won't need every finger on both hands. And that's bad. That's telling. How often do you see Derek Carr getting together with the offensive line? And I'm not putting all this on Derek Carr, by the way, either. But how often does Derek Carr get together with the receivers or the offensive line on the sidelines to go over film, on what they just saw from upstairs on the previous drive? Again, from the in this one, you have to get the coaches all 22 film, or either be at the games. But I've seen enough to tell you, it's not nearly as often as it should be. And all those point to a lack of leadership, to a lack of cohesion. And we've not only seen it with the Saints offense, but we've seen that kind of thing with the Saints defense as well. And this has been a monumental problem for this team all year long.
I'm glad you said lack of leadership, because of all things that going into the season I didn't have a whole lot of concerns about was the leadership of this team. And that has been a gaping hole. Defensively, a little concerning, considering in my mind you have complete leaders at every level. Defensive line and Cam Jordan, Damari Davis, and the linebackers, and Tyrann Mathieu in the secondary. I look at those guys, and towards those guys, veterans, guys who have won, guys who have been there before.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have some concerns there. Offensively, though, to me, it seemed like when Derek was signed, that it's, here you go, Derek. This is your team. You're the leader. And that hasn't materialized. So then you see other guys who, at points during the year, look to step up, and it didn't last long. Now, given Mike Thomas is a unique situation because of some of the things he's done, tweeted, said since. But there were times where it seemed like, okay, well, MT's going to be the guy. Okay, well, that didn't really last long. And it seemed times like, okay, well, Alvin's going to be the guy. But then not quite to the same extent as Michael Thomas, but Alvin's backed off, and he's made some like subtly passive-aggressive sounding comments as well. And clearly disagreeing with coaching staff. So it's like, still, okay, here, Derek, like, take it. But it doesn't seem to me, and you're 100% accurate when it comes to the offensive line helping the man up after he gets his butt put in the dirt. It reminds you of the Adam Sandler longest yard. Was it longest?
Little bit.
Yard? Where they just let him get sacked a few times. Same thing is it the replacements as well?
I believe so.
So Keanu Reeves' character, Shane Falco or whatever, like same situation where they just let him get hit a few times. I'm not saying that's the case here, but that type of divide is starting to become evident. The divide between Mike Thomas, the divide, maybe not the divide, but the unhappiness, Alvin Kamara, like some of those things are becoming magnified more and more as the weeks go on. And that's a concern to me. And some of you in the chat over the weeks too have expressed your opinions on that. You feel like Derek's lost the locker room. To me, yes and no. Yes, because of what you're seeing. No, because I don't know if he ever really had it.
Yeah.
Based off what I've seen, what I've heard, I don't know if he ever really went out and got the locker room. And I'm sure there were some splits, just like anything when you bring in a guy to replace a guy, right? You're going to have a split locker room. There was a split locker room between the Jameis and Taysom thing. Remember, that wasn't that long ago. There was a split locker room there. I'm sure there was a split locker room when with Andy Dalton and Jameis. Like, we've had this go on for a while. So when you pay a guy a whole lot of money, you're going to have a split locker room anyway.
Yeah, but we've never seen the disconnect there have been between quarterback Derek Carr and the majority of his offensive teammates.
Exactly. So, yes, I agree with a lot of you. Maybe he's lost the locker room, but at the same time, like I said, keep in the back of your mind, he may have never had the trust of his locker room. And what is he up to? Is he at 13 touchdowns now this year?
I want to say 12, but don't quote me on that.
12 or 13. The lack of touchdown passes, the lack of air yards, the lack of winning football games, the lack of accountability and ownership, those are things that are really damaging to any relationship, not just in football. Those last few things, accountability, responsibility, like those things can damage any relationship. And when you're going to war with people, Bob knows as a coach and a former pro athlete, you know, I know from being an amateur athlete and being in broadcasts, broadcasting booth and talking to people week in and week out, how damaging that can be to a relationship. I won't share names or anything, but I remember one time specifically asking a coach about a senior who had played essentially every snap or every minute or whatever, for the sake of keeping it open, whatever equation you want to throw in, doesn't come off the field or the court or whatever. So I asked, well, senior, obviously you have a lot of trust. What type of leadership abilities has this person shown as they've been kind of handed the keys as the senior? And it's a private call. And the coach goes, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Can we move on to another topic? I really don't want to talk about. And I said, that's all I need to know about the relationship and the trust between that player and that coach. And that player was still trusted down the stretch to play a lot. But you could see that it wasn't there. The trust to make the right play and do the right thing wasn't there throughout the stretch. And this is a little different because the example I just gave was between a coach and a player. I think coach and player, they're together here in this situation.
Rightly or wrongly, yes.
I think it's player to player, where the trust just isn't there to make the right read, make the right decision, do the right thing, be the leader. We talk about people's champions, people's quarterbacks, people's whatever a lot. Derek hasn't been any of those things
I know.
at this point. And I think that's a concern, not just in this game, but moving forward. Not just through this season. I see you, DJ, saying, why worry about the playoffs? We can't beat anyone. It's pathetic. To your point, I think this Derek Carr thing isn't just this year. It's going to be the year after, and the year after, and the year after. How long this lasts. But Sunday, to me, was I don't know if I can call it a microcosm of the season.
I know, because they actually won.
But just the individual performance. And I'll ask you this, and then, we can chat a little bit more and move on to the defense, then move on to the New York game. I saw a lot of people that were upset with Derek Carr at the end of the game, not because of the performance through the first three quarters, not because of the touchdown passes, clearly, because, you'll win a football game, but were upset or disappointed in his reactions to scoring, which I thought was really bizarre. I don't think I've ever seen someone or a fan base hone in on how is he reacting to success.
Yeah.
But once they pointed it out, as a person, I kind of understood it, because it wasn't a guy that was going to run over to his teammates, and it was a yeah, me. And it was but dude, you've only thrown for, you haven't done it. So with that in mind, Bob, closing out the Derek Carr conversation for this week, because we know it's bound to be back on Sunday, not even next week. It'll be back for Sunday's pregame show. Your thoughts on Derek Carr's performance, some of the non-performance issues we brought up, and then lastly the reaction, your reaction to people reacting to Derek Carr.
As far as my feeling on how people reacted to Derek Carr's celebration, a lot of those people have just gotten to the point with Derek Carr that no matter what he does, they are going to vilify him. And I understand that, but I also take that with a grain of salt. A lot of those people, Dennis Allen has those kind of people against him too. And listen, both of those guys have earned that, rightly or wrongly. I don't, as a coach or even his teammate, I'd prefer to see my quarterback or any of my teammates celebrate a little bit differently. I would prefer to see them celebrate in a more congratulatory way to the fellow teammates, the guys that just caught the touchdown passes, the guys that, the skill position guys that helped us get in position, the offensive line that kept me upright. I especially want to be friends with them because they're the guys that keep me alive. As a coach or even his teammate, I'd prefer to see it celebrated in a more congratulatory way. But I'm not going to vilify a guy for the way he celebrates something. The only way I would do that is if you're down 50-0 and you score a touchdown and then you celebrate that, and then hey, you got to look at the scoreboard and just walk to the sideline and lick your wounds. And so other than that, that's the way I feel about that. But the general way that I have been highly critical of Derek all season for this, the general way that I feel that Derek Carr conducts himself, and his reactions towards his teammates, frankly, I think is appalling. And again, I put myself in the position, in the mentality of either his coach or one of his teammates. And I wouldn't want to coach a guy like that. And I sure as hell wouldn't want to be a teammate with a guy like that, based off what we've seen. Now, and I say this a lot, that I'm not in the locker room, I'm not in those huddles, I'm not in those team meetings, but I'll say this too: the reaction that we have seen, and we alluded to this, a couple segments ago, the reaction from his teammates that we have seen towards him, either in public tweets and interviews, or just the general body language on the field and in competitive situations. I think that tells you what kind of person Derek Carr has been in these huddles, in in the locker room and in these meetings. And again, I reiterate, based off of the teammates' body language to him, that tells me that this is a similar type of Derek Carr that that is getting crucified for his piss poor attitude, piss poor body language, piss poor lack of accountability. So again, I reiterate, I wouldn't want to coach a guy like that. Wouldn't want to be a teammate with a guy like that. So I get it.
DJ says DA's asked for leaders to help him out. So who's the coach, and how do you think the players feel about that?
I get, as a coach, you do ask your leaders to step up. Sometimes you do it publicly, sometimes you do it in front of the team. Sometimes you pull those leaders aside, either as a small group or individually. So, and again, Dennis Allen, just like Derek Carr, Dennis Allen doesn't need to be criticized for every tiny thing he does. I don't have a problem with that. The problem that I have is that Dennis Allen himself, along with Pete Carmichael and frankly every member of that coaching staff, from the indicators I've seen, there's no leadership there. You obviously want your leaders to take over on the field, and then, for lack of a better term, in battle, because there's only so much that you can do as a coach on the sideline. But you also, as a coach on the sideline, you can still provide leadership qualities in practices leading up to the competition, and even in the midst of competition. And we have seen no leadership, as Brendan said earlier, and I agreed, we've seen no leadership on this team, be it on the field or on the sidelines. So again, and I've said this many times this year, when the players are getting criticized for lack of accountability, I've always countered with, well, why should they take accountability? It's human nature. Why should they take accountability when there's been no accountability or responsibility taken by the coaches? So, again, it's mayhem right now, and there's nobody that's either physically, mentally, or emotionally prepared to step forward in any kind of leadership capacity.
Which worries me forward, and really worries me for what the Saints may have to do in the off season. That's a discussion for the end of the season, though. You guys know what I'm hinting at a little bit. Talk about the defense. It's been a problem, and this is a really good one to talk about Carolina and then segue into New York, because they're going to have similar issues if we see a similar performance from the Saints defense. Saints couldn't stop the run against Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders. Bryce Young had a couple good runs, specifically the one where he rolled out right and made a couple guys look silly, like NFL Street video game silly, for a gain of, I think it was like 8 or 9 yards. And tip my hat to Bryce Young, because it shows the athletic ability that he does have.
Yeah.
And the fact that I do think he's going to be a good quarterback at this level. But he doesn't have an offensive line. He doesn't have weapons right now. So kind of being hung out to dry. The Saints, and as we alluded to, it's what kept Carolina in the game, is the fact that the Saints allowed Miles Sanders to hit him with a jab here, hit him with a jab there. Chuba Hubbard maybe did not come across as effective because he had more carries, but I mean, Chuba Hubbard as well was a guy that maybe not strong jab to the face, but little body blow here, little body blow there. And it ended up being a good 1-2 combination for Carolina. They just could not move the football consistently for stretches, right? They might have a good 6 plays, and then it stalled out. And that was their issue. But the Saints kept them in the ball game because of the inability to stop the run. Bob, looking at that Carolina game, before we move on to the Giants, and you can kind of segue this however you want, is, again, on paper, we felt like this was a game where New Orleans should have the upper hand fairly easily. When you see that type of performance against a team that is as bad as Carolina is, not that New Orleans is a good team by any means. We've said that for weeks now. The Saints are a bad football team. But for as ugly as that Panthers offense has been all year, when you're charting, when you're making notes, when you're watching this game and you're rewatching it, are you putting like asterisks next to things? Are you going, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened against a bad team?
There are a lot of F words and other 4-letter adjectives, in my notes. They are not for the, they are not PG rated, and definitely not for the faint of heart.
We definitely need to send those off to certain people in this chat. Here's a souvenir of Bob losing his mind watching the game.
You can actually see the deterioration happening to Bob Rose, as I'm charting plays during this game.
Not just to the pen, but to Bob's brain as well.
Yeah.
The pen starts losing ink a little bit faster as Bob scribbles a little bit harder. DJ, thanks for hanging out. I'll see you on Sunday for the pregame. But yeah, your reaction to the Saints' defensive struggles against Carolina and how that's going to continue to handicap this football team, particularly next week against the New York Giants.
Unlike last year, the struggles against the run last year were well documented, but this is a different type of struggle against the running game. Last year, the Saints were just getting blown off of the ball, and teams were running right up the gut and getting the majority of their success between the tackles. That's not the case this year, and frankly, I think Malcolm Roach was playing out of his mind. So losing him does hurt. But I think Brian Bresee has played pretty well, even against the run, although he's been caught out of position a couple of times. Nathan Shepard very well against the run. Colin Saunders, a little bit of a disappointment, but still a big body guy in there. The majority of the plays that the Saints have given up, and you saw this against Carolina, are on off-tackle plays and when a runner can get outside of the tackle box. And that's why Miles Sanders had the chunk plays that he did. But even Chuba Hubbard had 87 yards rushing. It took him 23 carries to do it. Chuba, as we pointed out in the days preceding the game and in pregame on Sunday, Chuba is more of their inside runner. When they ran Chuba Hubbard inside the Panthers, they didn't get a lot of yards. Chuba's chunk plays came, again, just like with Miles Sanders, when he got outside the tackle box and on-off tackle plays. Now, the big difference between a Chuba Hubbard and even a Miles Sanders getting a 15, 20, 30-yard game. A guy like Saquon Barkley of the Giants, that same scenario, Saquon Barkley's taking it 70 yards into the house, because Saquon Barkley is just that kind of back. And the reason that's happening to the Saints, their defensive tackles need to be better in this way. They need to get faster penetration to defuse those backs, force them to take a wider path to get to the outside, and allow the pursuit to catch up with them. But the Saints are getting beat off tackle and outside the numbers because A, they're showing their age. B, the defensive ends, particularly Carl Granderson. And I love Grand. I do. I think he's having a terrific season. But when teams run at him, he's getting blown off of the ball. Linebackers, not so much Demario Davis, but especially Pete Werner, Zach Bond when they've used him as an off-ball linebacker, and the safeties like Marcus May when he was healthy. I've seen it with Jordan Howard, definitely seen it with Tyrann Mathieu. They're taking poor angles to the ball carrier in pursuit, and they're getting caught out of position. That's why these runners are getting to the second level, and that's why the gains, and instead of being 8 to 10 yards, they're 15, 20, and 25 yards. So, the Saints are getting beat in the open field and outside of the tackle box. Again, it's a different way than what they've gotten beat last year, but it's also tailor-made. Their weaknesses are tailor-made for a guy with the skill set, and game-breaking ability of the New York Giants, Saquon Barkley.
I don't think it's just Barkley we have to worry about. This week, Tommy DeVito, you just throw on the tape from Monday and see the 70 yards he had on the ground. A guy that is uber athletic. You want to talk about a tailor-made player for what the Saints have struggled with over the years, and DeVito might be that. Yes, he's having a good run. Yes, they've won ugly, but a win is a win is a win. And he's 3-0 as a starting quarterback of the New York Giants. Want to kind of break down the things that make them special in the last few minutes today, and then obviously we'll get more into it on Sunday. Eric, you weren't in the chat when I said it the first time. Haven't forgot about you. There was a little fumble at the post office, perhaps. I got the package sent back to me, so I will be sending it out to Bob Express, and we'll be sending it to you from Bob Express as well. So you should have it by the end of next week. You should have it in time for the holidays. And sorry about the delay there. But yeah, I mean, this is a Giants team that, I mean, if you had asked me in week 5 about this matchup in the Superdome, probably a little more confident in the Saints than I am now. Danny Dimes wasn't having a great start to the season. Obviously, his future with New York is completely a complete question mark at this point. And it might not even be a question mark. It might be signed, sealed, and delivered that he's gone, or at least on his way out the door, depending on where the Giants draft and how they close the year out. DeVito has been a nice New York surprise. And Bob and I were joking before we got on that everything about it has been fun. The agent on Monday night really was the nail in the coffin for me in terms of making it fun and funny. The comeback victory on Monday night was great as well. Yes, they have a short week. Yes, it's a rookie quarterback playing in the Superdome. But as we've mentioned a couple times this year, it's a different Superdome than what it was. I mean, you could get tickets for that game last week for like $6, $7 to sit upstairs. Single tickets in the lower level on Sunday morning were going for under $60. Given it, that's a hard ticket to sell, a single ticket in the lower level. But shoot, somebody got a great deal. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're at. But the Saints have struggled in the run. You already mentioned Saquon Barkley. When healthy, one of the best running backs in football. DeVito has shown his ability to scramble, his ability to improvise, despite not having the greatest weapons in the world. Bob, the Giants offensively, what is there to love?
That's pretty much it. They haven't. They're 32nd in passing efficiency, 31st in total yardage. And that's even being buoyed a little bit by a 14th ranked rushing game. Now, not all of that is on DeVito. He's only started the last 4 games. Played extensively in a 5th. But remember, folks, this is their 3rd quarterback that the Giants are down. Not only did Daniel Jones get hurt, but Tyrod Taylor got hurt as well. Now, Taylor's back. He'll be the backup to DeVito on Sunday, so they do have an experienced backup there. But I'll tell you something that I like about the Giants offense, and it hasn't It hasn't manifested itself this year because they don't have a true dominant number one receiver, but they have a deep core of athletes at receiver. Wandale Robinson, terrific out of the slot. I love their day 2 draft pick of Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee. Darius Slayton. And Sterling Shepard, when healthy, have both proven to be big play threats too. So the Giants have multiple receiving threats, at wideout to attack teams with if they can protect their quarterback. So if I'm a Giants fan, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this receiving core, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, if this team can add a true number one wideout in the offseason, then the rest of these guys are really going to flourish. You haven't seen great numbers out of them so far because of inefficiencies at quarterback, the inability to protect the quarterback from the offensive line. But they have some nice players at wide receiver, and I think that I know they're athletic enough to test a very good New Orleans Saints cornerback crew.
And that brings me to this question. We can go through the list of injured quarterbacks for the Giants. It's not too long by any means, but Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor. You want to talk about a great insurance policy in Tyrod Taylor over the years. He's been a fantastic insurance policy for teams. He gets hurt. You got Tommy DeVito, more athletic than Tyrod Taylor at this point in his career. Taylor, still a guy who can make it happen with his legs, but DeVito's been a guy who has not been hit nearly as much. Some of that is because of his legs. He hasn't thrown an interception yet this season. Watching the game on Monday, pressured, yes. The ability to get out of the pocket and make plays, tremendous. Every great New York Broadway-esque fairy tale tends to come to an end. We have yet to really see a undrafted or late round guy in New York, whether it be the Giants, whether it be the Jets, whether it be the Nets, whether it be the Knicks, or whether it be the Rangers. Any team you want to talk about, New York. We've had some great runs when you talk about those handful of guys, but there always seems to be a bump in the road.
Mm-hmm.
Can the Saints defense and defensive line that has not pressured anyone all year long be that bump in the road for Tommy DeVito?
Yeah, I believe they can, Brendan. First of all, nobody has given up the amount of sacks that the New York Giants have this year. In fact, it's not even close. New York quarterbacks have gone down 69 times. Been sacked 69 times. DeVito has been sacked 28. Now, like you said, he didn't get sacked, against Green Bay. That was the first time all season that hadn't happened for the Giants, where they didn't surrender any sacks. But he was pressured. So know this: Tommy DeVito certainly has the athletic ability to escape from pressure, something that has given the Saints problems, and that's putting it mildly, all season long. But I love the way New Orleans pressured Bryce Young last week. They sacked him 4 times. Bryce escaped, and I mean slipped out of the grasp of at least 4 more sacks. So New Orleans has to finish plays. There's no question about that. Again, been a problem for the Saints defensive line, the ability to finish plays. But I like the fact that Dennis Allen, Joe Woods, whoever was calling the signals, they blitzed Bryce Young a lot. I would expect that same approach with Tommy DeVito, knowing that the Giants have not been able to protect their quarterback. And that strategy is twofold. Especially if you're blitzing the gaps rather than bringing outside blitzes, you should also be able to contain the running game, and at least limit the amount of running options that a guy like Saquon Barkley is going to have. So I fully expect the Saints to be extremely aggressive with their front 7, this week. But they have to finish play. You cannot let Tommy DeVito escape, and pick up 15, 20 yards a pop with his legs and keep drives alive. Bryce Young was able to do that, on a few occasions last week. You cannot let that happen time and time again. And that's the way that I think that they're going to beat the Giants is by bringing blitzes right up the gut, blitzing those gaps, and hopefully that'll create one-on-one opportunities for guys like Granderson, Brissy, who both had terrific games against Carolina. I see that potential happening again on Sunday.
Offensively, we've talked about the Saints' struggles. The Giants, defensively, not the best team, not the worst team. Might be closer to the bottom than the middle. That might be putting it lightly. But they did have some moments against Green Bay. And certainly had moments where Jordan Love looked uncomfortable. For the Saints, what can they do against this New York defense?
New Orleans needs to run the ball, and they need to stay patient with it, and that's been the biggest weakness for the Giants defense. New York only ranks 29th against the run, 31st in yards per carry. So those are two significant statistics that should be jumping off the page for Pete Carmichael and that offensive crew this week. So again, you not only have to establish the run early, you got to be patient with it, because I am not sure that you can go in with a pass-heavy game plan, against the New York Giants and have much success offensively. Again, it's not like the Giants have a spectacular pass defense. They're a little bit worse than middle of the pack, but they can pressure a quarterback. They have Kayvon Thibodeau, who's really come into his own on one edge, and they have Azeez Ojulari on the other side, who, when healthy, and he's healthy now, extremely underrated pass rusher at the other edge. You have Ashawn Robinson and Dexter Lawrence, able to bring interior pass rush. So if you have to throw the ball, if you abandon the run for whatever reason, you fall behind, you come in with an idiotic game plan, both of which are extremely possible with these New Orleans Saints teams, you're going to get blown out of the water, because I don't think you could keep Derek Carr upright, and you don't have the receivers to get quicks outside of Chris Olave, who, by the way, missed practice today because of an ankle injury. You don't have the receivers to get quick separation for Carr to get rid of the ball quickly. So you need to run the ball against the Giants and stay with it. That opens up your play action attack, could slow those edge rushers a little bit, maybe open up the middle of the field if New York feels that they have to bring blitzes or step defenders up in the tackle box to deal with the run. That gives you your quick hitters to your tight ends, all three of whom were pretty effective at different times against Carolina last week.
Taysom Hill potentially being back this week, going to be a big one for the New Orleans Saints. I think getting Jamal Williams involved the last 2 weeks may prove to be a positive thing as well for New Orleans, particularly in this matchup. I see this in the passing game being just as plain Jane as last week. And frankly, it's going to be a situation, not just because of the matchup against the Giants, where running the ball is going to work in the Saints' favor, but also, until we see something different, until we see a fully healthy Derek Carr, which I don't know if we've even seen this year, I don't see this offensive passing attack changing a whole lot. And that's when Mike Thomas is healthy. That's if Mike Thomas comes back healthy this year. When Shaheed comes back, or if Shaheed comes back healthy this year, I just don't see it changing a whole lot. I don't see this being a situation where Derek Carr is throwing for 300 yards a game. That's not going to happen. Not this year. Eddie threw it in the comments, and I'll throw it up on the screen right now. And we'll close on this note. Is the Saints? He says the Saints need to win 3 to have a good chance to win the division.
As long as 2 of those 3 are against, at least 2 of those 3 are against Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Because you have to separate both Atlanta and Tampa Bay hold multiple tiebreakers against you. You have to nullify the head-to-head tiebreaker that each team already has, and you have to separate yourself because they each have a better divisional record and better conference record right now. So you cannot finish in a tie with either one of those. So yeah, I agree with your comment, but two of those three wins have to be against Atlanta and Tampa Bay.
I think that goes without saying. If the Saints drop either of those, any chances of the playoffs are over. Well, Bob and I will be back with you guys on Sunday at 11:30 Eastern for the Bayou Blitz pregame as we look at the Saints and the New York Giants. For those of you that are curious, this is going to be the complete opposite of that classic between these two teams back in 2015. We're not seeing 13 combined touchdowns in this one by any means. And if for whatever reason we get anywhere close, you come back and you say, that I led you astray or something. This should be a low scoring game. Unfortunately for you people that love offense, and I'm on that, I love offense, but this is not the team for you. Not at all. Bob, you're going to have some more articles come out with the Saints News Network, continue to give people some great in-depth analysis on the New Orleans Saints and what they can do well against the New York Giants and vice versa, what the New York Giants could expose of the New Orleans Saints on both sides of the football. For that and so much more, where can people follow you and your work?
Yeah, and this afternoon I released a Saints run defense preview and how they match up against Saquon Barkley, Tommy DeVito, and that Giants attack. Tomorrow I'll be taking a more in-depth look, publishing a more in-depth look about how the Saints pass defense matches up against DeVito and those receivers that we mentioned earlier. And then I'll go and do the same with the pass offense and rushing attack, through Friday and Saturday as well. So you can follow me and catch those articles, certainly on the Saints News Network, at Saints News on Twitter, and the SI.com team site where we do the coverage for your New Orleans Saints. And I also publish the pieces on my personal pages, which are Bob Rose, ROSE, at Facebook, at Bobby R 2613 on Twitter, and all of our articles, all of our shows, and all of our great fans as well through the Bayou Blitz Facebook group and Bayou Blitz Twitter page at Bayou Blitz Pod. So if you're not already a member of that, please join up. It's a really fun group. The people that have already been a part of it, you guys have continued to make those groups, and those pages grow exponentially, throughout the 2 years that we brought you this product, almost 2 years now. And for that, we are eternally grateful, and bring other Saints fans in too. Friends, family members, people that you complain with in other Saints groups about Dennis Allen, Derek Carr, and whatever else you like to look at. Bring those people into the Bayou Blitz group too. We're trying to make that a separate entity so we can do some very special things with shows, and viewer experience going forward. But it can only happen with you guys' help.
And one thing we'd love to see with the Bayou Blitz Facebook page is we're at 1.9 thousand members. We would love to get to 2,000 by the end of the year. Obviously, it's a lot easier to stack up people into these groups when the Saints are winning. I think it says a lot about you guys and your hard work in getting people to the group. And I think it also says a lot, without patting ourselves on the back too much, I think it says a lot about the product that we put out there. If we can get to 2,000 during a pretty rough year. Robbie, thanks for tuning in. I hate when it says Facebook user. Facebook user, thank you for saying we're always informative. We appreciate you. If you can't be doing that, Bob, I saw that. Forget about it. We can't talk about DeVito yet. Not till Sunday. We can't do it.
I'm Italian. I say bring Tommy DeVito and his shine box in for you Goodfellas fans. Bring Tommy DeVito in as a backup this offseason. I'm all for it. Guido's rule.
We will have so many conversations this year on quarterback room, because just like last year, it's like who's gonna be the backup? What's the plan with Jake Haener? Are we gonna see any Jake Haener in actual game action? We might. You never know. For myself, you can follow me on virtually everything at BT Boylan. Follow me there for my work covering the New Orleans Saints, some other things that I have dabbled into. And, I want to throw this out there, Bob, because I'm usually really good about this. And so I'm going to test you. Did you have any idea that Jake Haener had changed his number? Because I didn't.
Yes, yeah, I did. I believe he changed it as soon as it was shortly after Will Lutz was traded. But nobody could really talk about it. It wasn't worth talking about at the time because almost simultaneously, Jake Haener got suspended for 6 games and has been an afterthought since.
That's probably what happened. He'd only been like the emergency third quarterback for one other game this year. But I'm thinking, when did he go from 14 to 3? I had to like do a double take. I was like, who is that?
What he did, he found out that Bob Rose wore number 3 in college, and that's what he really wanted to make. It had nothing to do with Lutz. He wanted to duplicate my high school number. I switched to 2 when I was in college, and I haven't looked back at 3 since. But I think he wanted to match up my high school number.
That was it. Oh, okay. The Facebook user threw it out. So Facebook user, I was trying to avoid this. But because you threw it out there, we're for the people, or in the Pat McAfee world, we're for the brand. We're going to talk about it. Weird way to close out the show. But it was a weird way for the Saints to close out the game in bringing in Jameis Winston. So the question from Facebook user is quick question for you, both of you. What did you think of Jameis, bringing Jameis in for the final kneel down? Bob, you want me to go first? You want to go first?
I'll go first. I think it was an absolute insult to Jameis Winston. And I didn't hear anybody else ask Dennis Allen or anybody else about this, after the game. Well, I heard it asked, and I heard a very general response, and I did not hear any follow-up question. I wish I would have been there for this particular game because I frankly would have asked it. If you're going to have Derek Carr, if you're not going to have Derek Carr take a kneel, what was it, 2 kneel downs at the end, because you're afraid of him getting hit, then why the hell was he playing in the first place? I think what you did with Jameis Winston was an absolute insult. Jameis would never say it. Either publicly, certainly not publicly, probably not even indicated because that's just what kind of guy Jameis is. But I think it's insulting to the man. I do. I don't think it affects the team going forward. Either individually through Jameis Winston or generally speaking. I think it's a pebble, pebble in the ocean at this point. But it's one of those little things that just piss you off, and I was pissed off to end that game.
This was the answer. From Dennis Allen. This was from his media availability on Monday. Saints News Network's own Ross Jackson reporting that when Dennis Allen was asked about Jameis taking the kneel down snaps, he said that the decision for Jameis to take the kneel downs, not just against Carolina, but New England, had no specific reasoning. He said that they, quote, just have Jameis, end quote, take those snaps. Ross also added that Derek Carr took the end game kneel downs in week 1, 2, and 8, while Jameis took them in weeks 5 and 13. So
maybe it's just odd weeks then. Oh my God.
So here's my thing with it. The New England game, so be it. They won 34-0. So be it. And if I don't have the box scores in front of me, but Jameis did take other snaps in that game.
Yeah, he did.
So that makes sense. To win as again, joking, what NFL social media has put out, the Saints winning a blowout game against, or winning big or whatever against the Panthers. Well, again, Derek Carr took every other snap in the game. So what's the point of him not taking 2 kneel? Because in my mind, and every team I've ever been a part of, the kneel downs are almost like a sense of pride because you won the game. The job is finished, right? So wouldn't you want the guy who finished the job to have that moment?
You
Unless
think?
it's a blowout against New England in that situation, Jameis played snaps. Okay, well, Jameis was the last
Mhm.
quarterback in. No point in throwing your starter back in to take kneel downs. It is what it is. Personally, the reporter side of me wants to think nothing of it because the Saints won the game. It is what it is. But the journalistic side of me goes, no, like there's something deeper here. And the two things that I can think of, both shots, just depends on who the shots were fired at, right? Those could be shots fired towards Jameis as like a backhanded thing, like Bob alluded to. Or two, it could be a backhanded thing towards the fans that have been chanting for Jameis for weeks. The journalistic side of me would say it could potentially be one of those things, and these things run a lot deeper. Like you said, Bob, and again, personally, if I was a backup quarterback and there were some potential quarterback controversies that I may or may not be in the middle of, and that happened to me, I'd be a little pissed off. I'd be upset, and I mean, just to throw it out there as well, I mean, Dennis Allen said that Carr wasn't 100% healthy, but more than fine to go out there and play. That was the quote prior to addressing the Jameis Winston thing.
Right.
Okay, so he was more than fine to go out there and play. Then why wasn't he more than fine to take a kneel down snap? That doesn't make any sense. If I'm Jameis Winston, I'm really upset. And Bob and I don't need to sit here and go on for another 10, 20 minutes about this. And we've talked about it for a year and a half now, almost 2 years now. Jameis was never DA's guy. He was Sean's guy. He might have been Drew's guy as well, right? There was a lot of people in the Saints organization that had a lot of faith in Jameis Winston.
Mm-hmm.
And shoot, before the ACL tear against Tampa Bay, I think most fans alike would say they had faith in Jameis Winston. Unfortunately for Jameis, he comes in that second year, had a tough start to the year. The numbers weren't great by any means. And then he got hurt. He never won his job back. But this isn't anything new, right? Nothing new. Because go back to last year with Andy Dalton and the controversies, and Andy's not performing, and the offense is terrible. Where's Jameis Winston? And Dennis stuck with his guy. In this case, it's even, I don't want to say worse, but it's not only is the offense struggling, but Derek Carr's brain's been rattled twice in 4 weeks. His AC joint has been sprained twice in 2 months, and he's broken ribs. And you just admitted he's not 100% healthy. Then why? And then to do that, like you said, it's almost like a backhanded slap. Okay, we'll just go out there and take 2 meaningless snaps. For whoever had Jameis Winston, in your parlay for negative yards rushing the football, congratulations. You're the only person in the world that had that. I want to read some of these comics. A cold quarterback to come in and take kneel down snaps. You're asking for a mishap exchange from center to quarterback. It's really high. I think that was a message to Jameis and the fans. This comes from Eric. Robbie says, if they're worried about injury, put a huge offensive line to take those kneel down snaps. Trevor Penning, come on down.
Yeah, right. Let's just clear our bench and give everybody a chance to play. This is the NFL. That's not how it should work. But that I don't know. I should zip it and call it a night.
No, I'd love to hear angry Bob tonight, or frustrated Bob, or Bob just go on a little bit of a rant. Eric also threw out one more before I let you go. He said, "I think it seems really childish for a head coach to do."
Yeah.
Frowny face emojis.
Yeah, like I said, it's either childish, childish and petty of a head coach to do, childish and immature, or we're winning by 3 touchdowns. It's time to clear our bench and give everybody a chance to play. That's high school bullshit. But that's the type of mentality that I think Dennis Allen has as a coach, because he's sure as hell not an NFL head coach.
And two, for that mentality to clear your benches, you do that with time still on the clock.
Yeah.
Not to take 2 kneel down snaps.
Yeah. And I mean, you won by 3 touchdowns, but you didn't get that cushion until 4 and then 3 minutes left in the game. So that's not a time to really clear your benches. You let your guys finish it out. It felt very. Jameis Winston's getting paid a lot of money to be a backup quarterback, so I'm not going to feel all that bad for him. But I almost felt bad for Jameis Winston, the person. I almost felt embarrassed for him. I doubt Jameis feels that way, but you have to believe that Jameis and perhaps other guys on that sideline were like, what the F? What the F is he doing? What the F is he trying to say, he being Dennis Allen, by doing this kind of thing? I don't get it.
It wasn't like a complete hockey line change either, right? Like, it wasn't like he brought in all the backup offensive linemen, all the backup running backs, and all the backup. Like, it was just Jameis. That was weird. And I said that watching the game. I was like, what is this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. We'll end on there because, in all honesty, I'll just go ahead and say this. Bob and I are going to have an end of the year show where we really let you, you guys know how we feel, but we're going to really let you know how we feel about a lot of things. And I think everybody who's consistently here kind of knows where we stand with the quarterback situation. You guys also know that we're both fans of Jameis Winston, the person. Maybe not in love with Jameis Winston, the player, but we love Jameis as a person. And to see a guy who has such positivity, a guy who speaks so highly on his teammates, a guy whose teammates speak so highly about him, to see some of this stuff go on has been really disheartening, discouraging, for people. But that is what it is. Facebook user says, "Thank you for your transparency instead of beating around the bush." That's what we're here for. If you've never hung out with us and you've never tuned into these things, everything's transparent. That's all we want to be at the end of the day. This isn't about being the most professional or being the most this or that when it comes to New Orleans Saints media. At the end of the day, we do this show because of you guys, and we do the show because of what you guys want our opinions on. And the little bit of insider knowledge that we do have does come out in these things, but more than anything, we're only here because you guys like to listen to us talk, and you guys like to read articles that are written by Bob and articles I wrote, last season and all that stuff. So yeah, we're here to be transparent. We're here to talk about whatever. Anything you guys throw in there, 9 times out of 10, we're going to talk about it. So we're happy to do so. Bob, you and I will, like I said, be back on Sunday for a pregame show. You have a lot coming out with the Saints News Network this week. Before I forget, because we have to talk about it, because there's so many other things to talk about. Shout out Jimmy Graham, proving you can still be a red zone threat at your age, and proving the coaching staff, well, I don't want to say wrong, but making the coaching staff look really dumb for being keeping him inactive lately, especially with the red zone struggles. So shout out Jimmy Graham. I thought we were getting that dunk, Bob. He faked me out. I thought we were getting it because it was late. You'd won the game. Take the 15 yards. What does it matter? And then he comes out and says, well, yeah, it's the 15 yards. 15 yards and the fine. It was the fine. He doesn't. A smart business move. Don't want to lose $7,000 off dunking a football. But maybe if someone offers to pay for the fine, he'll just do it. We can raise $7,000.
Yeah, I don't exactly have that hanging around. JG's on his own on that one.
Yeah. We'll let the multimillionaire take care of that.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us this evening for almost an hour and a half show. A little bit longer than normal, but there was stuff we definitely wanted to talk to you about, and we wanted to get to that last minute question that came in. So Bob's stretching it out before he hits the hay because you got a kid that's got to be up for school in the morning, right?
Yeah, this old man's tired.
And I got to get on a flight in the morning too. So until Sunday, we hope you guys have enjoyed the show. Until then, find some peace, spread love, practice positivity. We'll see you Sunday for the Bayou Blitz pregame show. Take care, guys.
Good night.